In this example, we're going to look at predicting the frequency of an allele after we do some kind of selection. So this is from the lecture material, but I wanted to go over it a little bit more in detail. So we're starting with a population in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Once again, when we see that, we should immediately think about our p squared, 2pq, and q squared as representing our genotypic frequencies in that population. So we're given that we have 16% red cattle, and we're going to decide to select against the red gene. So every generation, of course, this means we're not going to allow any of the red cattle to breed. The question asks us to calculate the frequency of the red gene after 3 generations of selecting against red cattle. So over here we have the formula that we need to solve this problem. We have the frequency of the allele we're interested in. In this case it's Q, it's the recessive allele. Q at time t, that means the frequency of that allele after t generations is equal to Q naught. That's the original frequency of that allele over 1 plus t, t being the number of generations, times again that initial frequency. So we're given 16% red cattle. That means that there are 16% of the cattle carrying the little b, or the homozygous recessive genotype. In this case, the formula is asking for Q, or Q naught, meaning we can't use 16% in the problem. So to figure out what Q is, we simply take the square root of 16%, since 16% is equal to Q squared in this case. Frequency of little b is always going to be equal to Q squared, which equals to 16%. So the square root of 0.16 is taken. We end up with Q, or the frequency of the recessive, as 0.4. That is our Q naught. That is our initial starting gene frequency. We simply set t equals to 3. That's the number of generations. Plug that in. We have 0.4 on top inserted there for Q naught, divided by 1 plus 3 generations times Q naught once again. Simplify that down. We end up with 0.18. So what happened? We started with Q naught at 0.4. After 3 generations, Q naught goes down to 0.18. Again, that's the frequency of the recessive. That makes sense since we're selecting against red cattle, selecting against that little b allele or the recessive allele.